Your methodology is antiquated, Eli. Marcus Thorne slid a single sheet of paper over the large, glossy surface of his desk and pronounced the words with a fluidity that had been practiced. It wasn't a notice of termination, something much more offensive. Elijah Cole is my name. I am 52 years old, and up until now, I oversaw all regional operations for Apex Industrial Solutions as head of safety. Mine was the first time in my 30 years in my sector that I had been disciplined for carrying out my duties with honesty. I nodded slowly and thoughtfully. As a silent protest against the sterile, untreated wood, I removed the hard hat that felt like a part of me and laid it gently on his desk. The office of the plant manager was made of cold steel and glass, with a subtle scent of pricey air freshener. I could see the plant's expansive center through the floor-to-ceiling window behind him. On the catwalks close to the main turbines, I could see the young technicians. They were traveling at a speed that I instinctively knew was the result of taking shortcuts. "Aren't you going to say anything?" Marcus, who exuded corporate ease by reclining in his ergonomic chair, asked. However, I noticed a tiny trembling in the hand that was holding his pen, which cost $1,000. The unquantifiable variable of a man who might just tell him to go to hell frightened him. He was a man who lived by spreadsheets and projections. I pushed myself to stand up and said, "There's nothing to say, Marcus," in a firm voice. "I'll clear out my office." There was a glint of disappointment in his eyes as he appeared surprised. Arguments are what men like Marcus thrive on. To support their icy calculations, they require the war. You leave them alone with the silent reality of their choices when you deny them that battle. He began by saying, "Look, Eli," his voice changing to one of artificial rationality. "This isn't personal. Simply put, our approaches to risk management in a competitive environment differ. Your method is meticulous, but our goals call for a more flexible strategy." With a tight, controlled motion, I nodded again. "I understand." After that, I turned away from him and left the glass prison. A symphony of controlled power filled the manufacturing floor. The concrete beneath my feet trembled with the heavy hum of the generators. The air was heavy with the smell of hot metal and ozone. Here, good men worked. At the end of each shift, skilled engineers and technicians who loved their families should be able to return home intact. Men who now worked next to emergency shutoffs partially blocked by hurriedly stored equipment and near-pressure pipes with gauges circumvented. For the purpose of a deadline, that is. With sadness, I cleared out my workplace. The shelves of safety instructions I knew by heart, my spare steel-toed boots, and the battered work gloves. I carefully removed the pictures of my daughter, grinning on her first day of college, and my wife, and I on our anniversary from the corkboard. 3 decades of showing up, of doing the work the right way, of ensuring every single person made it home. And Marcus Thorne had been sent from headquarters less than 3 months ago. As I walked toward the parking lot with a single box of my life's work, Liam, one of my best young technicians, hurried to catch up. "Eli, is it true?" he asked, his voice low. "About what Marcus did?" "He's reassigning me." I stated the fact without emotion, placing my box in the passenger seat of my old pickup. "He calls it a transfer to the historical archives." "That's just wrong, Eli," Liam said, his frustration clear. "It's a punishment because you wouldn't sign off on the Project Chenra shortcuts. What are you going to do?" I paused and looked back at the massive facility, at the men working under a false sense of security, at the risks being taken that would sooner or later demand a price in flesh and blood. I saw Marcus watching me from his window high above, a silhouette of detached authority. "Well, I should have started a month ago," I said. I came to Apex right out of engineering school. I learned the systems from the ground up. From calibrating sensors to designing safety interlocks, I worked my way up with honesty and diligence. When I was 25, a young man full of ambition, I watched a dear friend and colleague die. He was killed in a flash explosion because a supervisor chasing a production bonus ordered a pressure test on a system that hadn't been properly cleared. That supervisor's name is lost to time, but my friend's face is something I see every single day. So, when I finally became a safety chief, I made a vow. Everyone goes home. Apex hired me into this senior role 5 years ago to fix their safety culture after a string of incidents damaged their reputation. And I did. I implemented protocols that worked, training that saved lives, and a culture of trust. The company's incident rate plummeted. Productivity and morale soared. It turns out that people are more efficient when they aren't afraid of being maimed or killed. Then came Project Chimera. A massive upgrade. A punishing schedule. And with it came Marcus Thorne, the MBA from corporate sent to make sure the numbers worked. The first week he was all smiles and called me the conscience of the company. But the condescension was there from the start. By week 2, the real questions began. Eli, do the metrics truly support daily inspections on these valves? The statistical probability of failure is an infinite decimal. This secondary containment system seems redundant. Surely our technicians are competent enough to handle these catalysts without it. Can we expedite the turbine startup sequence by bypassing the preliminary sensor checks? We're behind schedule. Each time, I would patiently explain the regulations. More than that, I explained the why behind them. The accidents they prevented, the lives they protected. With every explanation, his smile grew tighter, his gaze more dismissive. The breaking point was a morning briefing where I heard him tell my team to leverage operational efficiencies to meet the new impossible milestone. It was corporate speak for cut whatever corners you need to. I waited until the others had left and closed the door to the conference room. You can't encourage them to bypass safety procedures, I said, keeping my voice level. I didn't, he retorted, his eyes flashing with irritation. I empowered them to be innovative and results-oriented. Those procedures are what keep them alive, Marcus. He actually let out a short, sharp laugh. Come on, Eli. You've been around long enough to know the game. We write the safety reports to look good for the regulators and the board. But on the floor, we do what it takes to hit the numbers. Not on my watch. And that's the core of the problem. His voice turned to ice. You think this is still your watch? After that conversation, I began to build a file. I took pictures with my phone of the block shutoffs, the bypassed gauges, the faulty warning lights. I made detailed notes of every conversation where he advocated for a dangerous shortcut, documenting the specific federal and state codes being violated. I saved copies of my formal emails expressing these concerns, all of which were met with polite, dismissive replies. My wife Sarah knew something was deeply wrong. You're not sleeping well, she said one evening, her hand resting on my arm. It's just work. Is it bad? She asked, her eyes full of concern. I could only nod. It's getting there. The final confrontation happened on a Tuesday morning. I came in at dawn to run a system check on the primary cooling loop for Reactor 3. I found 2 of the youngest technicians, including Owen, who just had a new baby, working on a high-pressure valve with the main lockout-takeout system completely bypassed. They were one wrong turn a wrench away from a catastrophic failure. I shut the operation down instantly and had them begin the procedure again, the right way, the safe way. Marcus stormed onto the floor while I was personally verifying the new lockout. What in God's name is this, Cole? Why is my team standing around? They were working on a live system without a proper lockout, I said, my voice dangerously calm. They are now following the correct and legal procedure. We are already 24 hours behind on this phase, he hissed, his face reddening. The board is expecting an update. Then the board will be glad to know we averted a potential disaster that would have put this entire plant offline for months. He stepped right up to me, invading my personal space. I understand you have your comfort zone, your old way of doing things, he said, his voice a low growl. But Apex can't afford to have its progress dictated by an outdated zero-risk mentality. I stopped what I was doing and turned to face him fully. Zero-risk mentality. This is a federally mandated safety protocol. It's a protocol for inspectors, he sneered. Be a team player for once, Eli. In that moment, a cold clarity washed over me. I had been trying to reason with him, to appeal to a sense of decency. I now realized he utterly lacked it. He wasn't ignorant of the risks. He simply didn't care. Those are my men over there, I said quietly, the anger in me a low, steady burn. Owen has a newborn daughter. They trust me to make sure they see their families again. They're professionals. They are responsible for their own safety. I stared at him, truly seeing the void behind his eyes for the first time. That is not how this works. That is not how any of this works. Look, he sighed, trying one last time to sound reasonable. Just sign off on the abbreviated procedure for this one instance. I'll take full responsibility in my report. No, you won't, I said, the words flat and final. You'll blame them, or you'll blame me. You'll blame whoever is most convenient for your career. His face hardened into a mask of cold fury. Is that a refusal to follow a direct managerial instruction? It is a refusal to falsify a critical safety document. Yes. He held my gaze for a long second. Then we have a serious problem. I nodded, the truth of it settling in my bones. Yes, Marcus, we do. That afternoon, I compiled all my evidence, the photos, the logs, the unanswered emails, and filed a formal request for an internal safety audit, citing gross negligence under Project Chimera. I sent it directly to the Chief Compliance Officer at headquarters. The response was a deafening silence. The next morning, I was summoned to Marcus's office and given my new assignment in the archives. As I drove home from the plant, the initial shock gave way to a strange and profound calm. There was no more conflict raging inside me. No more trying to fix a system that was designed to be broken. The path forward was suddenly, terrifyingly clear. I pulled into my driveway and sat in my truck for a long moment, looking at the home Sarah and I had built. The life we had made through hard, honest work. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I now knew I should have called weeks ago. Federal Safety and Workplace Bureau. How can I direct your call? My name is Elijah Cole, I said, my voice firm. I need to report a series of willful and systemic safety violations at an Apex Industrial Solutions plant. I can assist you with that, sir, the operator replied. Can you describe the nature of the alleged violations? I have digital documentation, photographic evidence, dates, names, and a record of management actively ordering these violations. There was a brief pause followed by the rapid sound of typing. Are you a current employee at this facility, Mr. Cole? No, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. I was effectively removed from my duties this morning for refusing to falsify a safety inspection. I see. The operator's voice became sharper, more focused. In that case, sir, please hold. I'm transferring you to our Office of Special Investigations. An investigator will want to take your statement immediately. The FSWB investigator, a woman named Eva Roth, met me in a small, discreet cafe the following morning. She was sharp and focused, her expression serious. She placed a small digital recorder on the table between us, her notebook already open. Mr. Cole, please walk me through the timeline from the beginning, she said, her tone professional but not unkind. I told her everything. The arrival of Marcus, the shift in company culture from safety to speed, the specific documented violations under Project Chimera, the internal audit request that was ignored, and the punitive reassignment that followed. And you have all of this evidence compiled? She asked, her eyes intent. I slid a small encrypted flash drive across the table. Every photo is timestamped and geotagged. Every email is there. I also have audio memos I dictated to myself after every critical conversation with Marcus. It's all organized. She took the drive and secured it in her briefcase. This is an extraordinarily well-documented case, Mr. Cole. I've spent my entire life in this industry, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I know what happens when men like Marcus are allowed to gamble with other people's lives. She nodded, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. We will begin a preliminary review immediately. Our whistleblower protections are robust, which means Apex cannot legally retaliate against you. She paused, seeing the grim look on my face. But they already have, haven't they? They demoted me before I officially filed this report with you, I explained. It muddies the waters. Not necessarily, she countered. The statutes also protect those who raise internal safety concerns. We should definitely open a parallel inquiry into retaliatory action. She gave me her card, which listed her as a special investigator for the OSI. For now, stay quiet. We will likely move to conduct an unannounced inspection within the week. We may need you to confirm some details when that happens. I left the cafe feeling a profound sense of relief. The gears of justice were finally turning. The system was going to work. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Liam. Eli, you need to hear this, he said, his voice hushed and urgent. Marcus held a plant-wide meeting this morning after you left. He told everyone you were reassigned pending an investigation into data mismanagement. He said you were improperly accessing and distributing proprietary company files. A cold dread washed over me. That's a complete fabrication. Of course it is, and anyone who really knows you knows that. But he's building a narrative, Eli. He said that anyone found communicating with you about company matters would be implicated in the investigation. He's trying to poison the well and intimidate any witnesses. I murmured, the strategy becoming sickeningly clear. It gets worse, Liam continued. He had some lawyer from corporate give a presentation about protecting company assets and the legal penalties for sharing trade secrets. They're making everyone sign updated, more restrictive non-disclosure agreements. After I hung up, my hands were shaking with a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins. I immediately called Investigator Roth to update her. She listened without interruption, a heavy silence on her end of the line. This accelerates everything, she said finally, her voice strained. This is active, overt obstruction. We're moving the inspection up. We'll go in tomorrow. But just an hour later, she called me back, and the frustration in her voice was palpable. We've hit a wall, Mr. Cole. A major one. Apex's legal team has filed a preemptive counter-complaint against you with the Bureau. They're accusing you of corporate espionage, claiming you stole confidential design schematics and operational data. They are demanding the return of all stolen assets before they will consent to any on-site inspection. That's not how the FSWD is supposed to operate, I said, my heart sinking. No, it's not, she agreed, the anger in her voice barely concealed. But they have friends in Washington. Someone with influence is putting their thumb on the scale to slow this down. So what does this mean for the investigation? It means we have to fight them through legal channels, and that will take time. Weeks, maybe months. They're also submitting falsified reports claiming that all the potential safety issues you flagged have already been remediated, which makes our job of proving willful negligence much harder. I ended the call and sat at my kitchen table, the silence of the house pressing in on me. Marcus wasn't just defending himself. He was methodically discrediting me, turning me from a whistleblower into a criminal. My phone buzzed. It was an encrypted message from a source I didn't recognize, but I knew it had to be no. They're scrubbing the logs, running a massive data cleanup overnight, altering historical maintenance records. Just wanted you to know. They were digitally erasing the past. By the time any investigator ever set foot in that plant, it would be a fiction, a perfectly compliant illusion. Marcus wasn't just trying to save himself. He was ensuring that the deadly risks would remain, buried under layers of lies, waiting for the next person to pay the price. The next morning, I drove to a small park near the industrial district where some of the off-shift techs sometimes ate lunch. As I'd hoped, I found Liam, Noah, and Owen at a secluded picnic table. They waved me over, their expressions a mixture of concern and defiance. "Should you guys be seen with me?" I asked as I sat down. "This could cost you your jobs." Liam gave a humorless laugh. "We're on a public bench on our own time. Besides, they can't fire the entire technical staff. They're running a full court press back there, Eli," Noel said, leaning in. "It's an army of id consultants optimizing our data, they call it." "They're fixing everything you ever wrote a report about," Owen added, looking nervous. "It's like they're following your list as a guide." "So, they're admitting in their own way that every single one of my concerns was valid," I said bitterly. "They just refused to act until they got caught." Owen, the young father, fidgeted with his phone. "There's more, Eli. I was near the admin offices yesterday, and I heard Marcus on a conference call. He was talking about you. He said they needed to dig into your entire work history, find anything they could use to neutralize the threat." A chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air went down my spine. They're not just defending, they're attacking. "I don't think this is just Marcus anymore," Liam said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I think this goes all the way to the top." "What makes you say that?" He exchanged a look with Noah, who nodded. Noah pulled a small, nondescript tablet from his backpack, powered it on, and slid it over to me. On the screen was a forwarded email chain. The subject line read, "Project Chimera, Aggressive Timeline Implementation." The body of the lead email was chillingly direct. "The board has signed off on the revised schedule. Standard safety protocols can be adjusted as operationally necessary to achieve the Q4 completion target. All official documentation must reflect full and unwavering compliance irrespective of field-level modifications. The Chimera model, if successful, will become the new standard for all future Apex projects. A revised executive bonus structure is attached." The sender's name was at the bottom. Silas Blackwood, the founder and CEO of Apex Industrial Solutions. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Marcus is arrogant," Noel said quietly. "He stays logged into the main server on his office desktop. I was running a diagnostic nearby and happened to see his inbox." I stared at the screen, the pieces of the puzzle falling into a sickeningly clear picture. This wasn't a single manager's ambition. This was a deliberate top-down corporate strategy written in black and white. They were beta testing a plan to sacrifice safety for profit on Project Chimera, with the intent to roll it out across the entire company. "Q4 is impossible," I breathed. "That's a full quarter ahead of any realistic safe schedule." "That's why they sent Marcus," Liam said grimly. "He's the guy they call when they need the impossible done, and they don't care how he does it. He delivers the results, and he's an expert at making sure someone else takes the fall if it all goes sideways," Owen added. I handed the tablet back to Noel, my mind racing. "Has he done this before?" The three of them looked at each other, a silent, grim understanding passing between them. "There are stories," Owen said finally, "about the Olympia gas plant project. A few years back, there was a major incident, an explosion. A good engineer, a friend of one of our senior guys, was killed. The lead engineer on the project took all the blame," Liam added. "They said he was negligent, that he cut corners. The company buried him. Word was the real problem was faulty equipment and a rushed timeline, but he was blacklisted from the industry. He had to change careers completely." I pulled out my phone and made a note. "Olympia gas plant project. I need to find that engineer." "What's the plan, Eli?" Liam asked, his face etched with worry. Owen chimed in. "They're erasing all the evidence. They're painting you as a criminal. My brother-in-law is in HR. He said they're building a termination file on you that claims you were stealing and selling company secrets for months. I looked at these three men. Good, brave men who just wanted to be safe at their jobs. They were risking everything to sit here with me. They were being endangered every day by executives in a boardroom 1,000 miles away. I'm not sure of the whole plan yet, I said, my voice low but steady. But I know one thing. What they're doing isn't just a violation. It's a conspiracy. And it's not about Marcus Thorne anymore. This is about Silas Blackwood and the entire company he built. Driving home, the anger and fear began to coalesce into a cold, hard purpose. I couldn't just expose the dangers of Project Chimera. That wasn't enough. I had to expose the entire rotten system, from the boardroom to the plant floor. To do that, I needed more than just data logs and pictures. I needed a human story. I needed evidence they couldn't scrub from a server. And I knew exactly where I had to look for it. The next important step was to track down Leo Martinez, the engineer who had been blamed for the Olympia gas plant project. His record was sealed, and the official channels were a dead end. However, Apex provided a private online community for its retirees, where they could connect and exchange stories. I meticulously crafted a post over the course of 2 days, posing a general question of the Olympia project as an academic inquiry into engineering issues. I received a private message a day later. You're posing risky queries. Let's talk if you're serious. It came from a former maintenance manager who had faith in Leo. A little auto repair business in a forgotten town in rural Idaho was the new name and location he told me. The high-tech realm of engineering was a planet away. I set up a private video call for us to meet. I could hardly recognize Leo from the old business photo I had located when his face came up on my screen. The intelligent, self-assured engineer had vanished, to be replaced by a guy who appeared to be haunted. His face was so deeply engraved with fatigue that it seemed to be permanent. I appreciate you talking to me, Leo, I said. Wasn't sure I was going to answer the call, he said in a gruff voice. Apex Industrial isn't the name I like to hear. I fully comprehend. Up until last week, I served as their safety chief. His eyes narrowed slightly, clouded by past pain. You were kicked off a big project for voicing safety concerns. Let me guess, he continued, his lips forming a sour, sardonic smirk. Does the name Marcus Thorne mean anything to you? He only needed my nod as proof. The common experience served as a bridge of treachery between us. He's using the same playbook, Leo, I said, just on a new victim. I couldn't see the recollection he gazed upon as he looked past his screen. They'll destroy you. That's his specialty, you know. You'll be a radioactive target in the industry after he's finished. A phony. A liar. A man who put his coworkers in jeopardy. I retorted, only if I stand by and let him. I'm not watching. I'm defending myself, and I think you can assist me. His laugh seemed hollow. Aid you? How? I made an effort to fight. I submitted reports. I spoke with an attorney. Nobody would pay attention. They declare it a tragic accident after one man dies. The legal department at Apex is as large as a small army. But it wasn't just a tragic accident, was it? I asked quietly. Your project wasn't the only one. There was a pattern. As he struggled with ghosts, he fell silent, and the silence lasted for a full minute. No, he finally answered, his voice hardly audible above a whisper. It wasn't. Leo spilled the beans over the course of the following hour, explaining how Marcus had been brought in to speed up the Olympia project. How the pressure increased every day, how his written complaints concerning hurried inspections and poor quality supplies were often disregarded, and how Marcus had already created a dossier of fabricated reports and inspection sign-offs bearing Leo's name when a crucial valve broke and resulted in the explosion that killed his closest friend. Leo adamantly stated, I never signed those papers, his voice breaking with 10 years of repressed pain and rage. My signature was falsified. However, they acted so quickly that I was fired before I could really comprehend what had happened. In the news, I was the bad guy. The family of one of my friends sued me for wrongful death, not Apex. Did you keep anything? With my heart racing, I inquired. Any records, emails, anything at all? He paused, his eyes averting. I tried to forget for a long time. All I was attempting to do was get by and rebuild my life. However, before they shut me out, I made a backup of my work computer. Everything. Everything is on an old hard drive that sits on my desk. I never gave it another glance. He said, "There's one more thing," in a very low voice. The director and Marcus gave us the instruction to utilize the less expensive, uncertified valves during the last project meeting. It seemed crazy to me. To protect myself, I activated my phone's speech recorder. The entire meeting is on audio for me. My throat tightened each breath. The one piece of evidence they would never be able to remove was the smoking gun. That recording alters everything, Leo. Are you going to tell me? Put that together with the proof I have. He searched my face as he gazed at me through the screen. With obvious weariness in his voice, he questioned, "For what?" FSWB is a farce. They have no teeth. For men like Thorne and Blackwood, the system is biased. Decisively, "I'm not going to the FSWB," I declared. No longer. I'm thinking more broadly. If we can demonstrate that there is a pattern of illegal activity orchestrated by the company's highest level. There was a flare of brightness in Leo's eyes that I had assumed had been extinguished years before. "You're talking about a criminal conspiracy." I nodded slowly. "Willful violation of federal safety laws resulting in a death is a felony. With your audio file and my documentation, we can prove a pattern of racketeering. This goes beyond fines and sanctions. This is about putting the men responsible in prison." "The Department of Justice," he whispered. For the first time since the call began, a spark of the old defiant engineer returned to his face. "You honestly believe we can make this stick?" "I can't do it alone," I said, putting all the conviction I felt into my voice. "I need your evidence, Leo, and I need your voice." He was silent for a long, heavy moment. "They took my career," he said, the words heavy with loss. "They took my friend. They took my name." His jaw tightened with a resolve that had been buried for 10 years. "Tell me exactly what you need me to do." For the next week, I lived and breathed the case. Leo overnighted me the hard drive, and I worked relentlessly, weaving his evidence from the Olympia project together with my own from Project Chimera. I created a damning, irrefutable timeline of corporate malfeasance. I reached out through the retiree forums, and with Leo's help, found 2 other engineers who had been pushed out under similar circumstances. They were afraid, but Leo's courage gave them courage. They agreed to provide sworn affidavits. Meanwhile, Liam kept feeding the updates. The cover-up at the plant was complete. But Marcus, overconfident, was already pushing the crews to cut new corners, creating new dangers. The monster was still hungry. On Friday morning, 2 weeks after my reassignment, I submitted the entire case file. Hundreds of pages of documents, photos, affidavits, and one damning audio file to the Department of Justice's online portal for reporting industrial and corporate crime. The system was automated. I hit submit, and the package vanished into the digital ether. For 3 days, there was only silence. Then, on Monday morning, I got a call from a Washington, D.C. number. It was a lead prosecutor from the DOJ's criminal division. They had the file. They had listened to the tape. They were taking it seriously. The wheels of a much bigger, more powerful machine were beginning to turn. The raid didn't happen at the plant. It happened a week later at 10:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. It happened at the Gleaming Glass and Steel Apex Industrial Solutions corporate headquarters in Seattle. According to the news reports, a team of 24 agents from the FSW's Office of Special Investigations and the FBI stormed the executive floor. They served a federal warrant in the middle of a quarterly board meeting. I imagined the scene with grim satisfaction. The shock on the faces of the polished board members, the sudden, panicked powerlessness of Silas Blackwood as he realized his carefully constructed world was collapsing. And Marcus Thorne, the golden boy, the ruthless implement, his face turning to ash as he was rid his rights. Investigators, armed with a precise list I had helped create, seized specific servers from the data center. They took every computer from the executive suite. They knew exactly what they were looking for, because Leo and I had given them the map. I didn't need to be there to see it. The system, the real system, was finally working. 3 months later, I sat in a spacious corner office looking at the architectural plans for a new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. As the new vice president of safety for the firm that had acquired Apex's non-toxic assets after its bankruptcy, I had the final say on every safety protocol for all their new projects. My phone buzzed with a news alert. A small, tight smile touched my lips as I read the headline. Apex executives, including CEO Silas Blackwood, indicted on federal racketeering and manslaughter charges. The article detailed a sweeping federal indictment. Blackwood, Marcus, and 3 other executives faced a battery of criminal charges: conspiracy, falsification of records, obstruction of justice, and most importantly, criminal negligence leading to the death of an employee at the Olympia gas plant. If convicted, they were all facing significant time in federal prison. The company was gone, its name a permanent stain on the industry. Leo Martinez had been publicly and completely exonerated. The settlement he received from the Apex bankruptcy estate would allow him to live comfortably for the rest of his life. But more than the money, he had his name back. My phone rang. It was Liam. He was now the lead safety engineer at my new company's largest plant. "Did you see the news, Eli?" he asked, his voice filled with a triumphant energy. "I just saw it. They're saying that the Project Chimera upgrades have to be completely torn down and rebuilt. The structural and safety flaws were too deep to fix." There was a deep satisfaction in his voice. "Some might call that karma. I just call it the cost of doing things the wrong way," I replied. After we hung up, I walked to the large window overlooking the site of our new project. I saw teams of workers moving with a quiet confidence that comes from a safe, well-organized environment. Every safety rail was in place. Every piece of equipment was up to code. Every person on that site was properly trained and protected. No one would be asked to cut a corner. No one would be forced to choose between their job and their life. I didn't need to see Marcus Thorne in a prison jumpsuit to feel the victory. Proof was right here in front of me. It was the sight of men and women doing honest work, secure in the knowledge that at the end of the day, they would all go home safe. That was the only victory that had ever mattered. Because I'm a village girl with no education, they told me to return. Huh. I asked for further information because I didn't grasp the situation. It seems that Eric, the head of the sales department at the headquarters, harassed Lisa after she attended a meeting there. The other competitors, who had assembled from various branches, did not attempt to stop Eric. Instead, they merely smirked and watched. She fought back tears and went back to the office, shocked. I became enraged as I heard the specifics of the circumstance. This is not possible. I'll make them regret it if that happens. I made the decision to act on Lisa's behalf and hold them accountable. I picked up the phone on my desk and contacted headquarters President John Clark, ignoring her perplexity. "Hey, pay attention. I'm dismissing them all." "What?" John was taken aback by my abrupt statement. "I am a 49-year-old man named Billy White. At the moment, I work as the branch manager for Sunny Life Insurance, a local insurance provider close to the corporate office. I started working in Sunny Life Insurance's sales department as soon as I graduated from college. I put in a lot of effort every day despite my struggles. I progressively rose through the ranks as a result of my diligence, eventually becoming a manager of a branch. In addition to my normal responsibilities as branch manager, I additionally prioritized staff training. In all honesty, our branch's sales were lower than those of other branches, and employee morale had declined. I read leadership books and put what I learned into practice by listening to the grievances and opinions of my staff and making changes to increase their motivation in order to resolve this problem. After experimenting with several approaches, the staff's motivation swiftly returned, and our branch's sales also started to increase. Our sales are now on par with those of any other branch. I was confident in our operations because the staff was in a good mood. Then one day headquarters sent out a notice. It appeared to be the location of a conference. In order to report on their actions, discuss the status of their allocated quotas, and generate ideas for increasing sales, representatives from the sales divisions of various branches would convene. Normally, I would have sent the sales manager from our branch, but he was helping another branch right now, so I sent Lisa, a new salesperson who had only been with us 6 months. She was competent and put forth just as much effort as everybody else, even though she was a novice. I was at ease in trusting her with this duty because of this. During the meeting day, I summoned Lisa to my office. I hope the meeting at headquarters goes well. Don't go overboard since you're always so serious. Thank you, indeed. She replied happily. I'll try my hardest without overworking myself. And she enthusiastically made her way to headquarters. But 30 minutes later, Lisa returned to my office for some reason. Huh. What happened? Isn't the meeting still going on? Did you forget something? Well, they told me to go back because I'm an uneducated country girl. Huh. Not understanding the situation, I asked for more details. Apparently, after arriving at the meeting, she was bullied by Eric, the head of the sales department at the headquarters. I don't recognize you. Are you new? Why is a rookie here? Oh, well, I'm here to attend in place of my manager. In place? You? Hemph. So where are you from, and what's your education? Although surprised by the sudden questions, Lisa answered honestly. She had told me before that she came from a rural area far from the city. For personal reasons, her highest level of education is a high school diploma. But Lisa was honest about that with Eric as well. And then he suddenly burst out laughing. So you're just a high school graduate from the countryside. Someone like you has no business at the headquarters. You're an eyesore. Get out of here, you uneducated country girl. What? Lisa was bewildered by the harsh words thrown at her. Meanwhile, the other participants from various branches just stood by, smirking without trying to stop Eric. Shocked, she held back her tears and returned straight to the office. Hearing about the situation, I felt a surge of anger. This is unacceptable. I'll make them regret this. I decided to take matters into my own hands and deal out some consequences on Lisa's behalf. Wait here. I'm calling them now. Ignoring her confusion, I picked up the phone on my desk and called John Clark, the president of the headquarters. But he didn't answer. I kept calling, about 5 times. And finally, John picked up. Hello, John, you're as slow as ever to answer the phone. Could you at least pick up on the first ring? Billy, I'm sorry. I was just a bit busy. He quickly straightened up his tone. Anyway, what's going on? It's not like you to call out of the blue. Is there some urgent matter? It's sudden, but I'm firing them all. What? John raised his voice, shocked by my abrupt statement. What do you mean? Why would you say something like that? There's a meeting going on over there, right? Representatives from the branch sales departments should be gathered. Yes, the meeting is currently in progress, but what about it? He seemed confused, unaware of the incident. I carefully explained the situation to him. We sent a new employee from our branch to attend, but it seems Eric from the headquarters sales department turned her away. What? Is that true? Yes. I heard it directly from Lisa herself. She's an honest person and wouldn't lie about this. So why is the meeting continuing without any issues? Speaking in a low voice, I could hear John's voice tremble with concern. Lisa, you mean I'll stop the meeting immediately. I'll also question Eric about the situation, so please give me a moment. Please do. And bring Eric to our branch. I want to hear his side of the story. Understood. We'll come right away. With that, he hung up the phone abruptly, without even saying goodbye. As I calmly placed the receiver down, Lisa spoke up, worried. What just happened? By them, you mean the headquarters, right? Who did you call? Oh, that was John, the CEO of the headquarters. He's bringing Eric here, and I'm going to make him apologize to you. What? Eric is coming. Her face clouded as she recalled what had happened at the meeting. Seeing her expression, I tried to reassure her. Don't worry. I called him here to apologize to you, so he won't be throwing any more insults. But I feel bad making him come all the way here just for me. I'll be fine, really. No. This situation needs to be addressed immediately. It can't be ignored. You wouldn't want to keep working with this weighing on your mind, right? Let's wait here for a little while. With that, we stayed in the room, waiting for their arrival. 15 minutes later, there was a knock on the door of the branch manager's office. When I responded, the door slowly opened, revealing a pale-faced John and a confused-looking Eric. Sorry to keep you waiting. Excuse me. Welcome, John. Eric, I assume you know why you were called here. Sitting back in my desk chair, I glared at them. John was trembling with fear, but Eric still seemed to be confused about the situation. Actually, I'm not entirely sure what this is about. The meeting was abruptly stopped, and I was brought here without any explanation. What do you want with me? Oh, you say you don't remember something that just happened a moment ago. Well, do you at least remember her? I certainly hope so, because it would be a real problem if you didn't. I gestured toward Lisa, who was standing next to me. Though she had been looking down, she mustered up the courage to slowly lift her gaze toward Eric. As if suddenly remembering, Eric's eyes widened slightly. Oh, you're that high school graduate from the countryside. What are you doing here? Did you get kicked out of the meeting room and come back to get scolded by the branch manager? No, that's not it. Hey, you. What on earth are you saying? Apologize to Lisa right now. Quickly, John, in a panic, yelled at him. Eric was greatly surprised. What's going on? Why are you so worked up? She's just a high school graduate, right? She's not someone important. On the contrary, she is an important person. Billy told me himself that Lisa here is his niece. What? Eric stood there dumbfounded, his eyes wide with shock. Oh, I see. I'm terribly sorry. I had no idea she was Billy's niece. I retract what I said earlier. Why are you so calm about this? Don't you know who Billy is? Huh. He's the branch manager, right? What else is there? Eric replied immediately, without hesitation. John, visibly frustrated and anxious, began explaining who I was in response to that answer. Don't be ridiculous. He is the chairman of Sunny Life Insurance. Don't even try to claim you didn't know that. Do what? Finally realizing who I was and understanding the gravity of the situation, Eric raised his voice in shock. As John said, I'm not just the branch manager, I'm also the chairman of the company. You might wonder if it's possible to hold both positions simultaneously, but as long as the company's size, internal regulations, and legal requirements are met, it can be done. Of course, I had already explained the reasons for holding both positions, along with the benefits and risk management strategies, to the employees, business partners, and shareholders, and had gained their approval. Even though I explained this, Eric still didn't seem to grasp it. Wait a minute. I didn't know anything about this. Did you properly explain it to all the employees? You were transferred to the headquarters about 4 months ago, right? Even so, it's strange that you wouldn't know. We made sure to notify all branches before I started as branch manager. I became the branch manager 3 years ago, and at that time, Eric was working as the sales manager at another branch, so he should have received the notification I sent. As proof, all the employees are aware of this fact. Suddenly, it seemed like Eric remembered something. Wait, maybe I do recall going through the notifications from headquarters, but the content. He tried hard to remember, racking his brain for the details, but in the end, it seemed he couldn't recall the contents of any of the notifications. From what he told me, it turns out that he rarely paid attention to notifications and often tossed them in the trash. Even when he did read them, he would forget about them by the next day. What's more, he even forgot the name of the chairman, me, and the names of the branch managers other than those from his own branch. After hearing the situation, John shook his head in disbelief. Seriously, this is too much. You have zero interest in others. You should at least remember the chairman's name. If you had, you would have immediately realized that he's serving as branch manager here. But the chairman hardly ever comes to the office, and I only see the other branch managers at meetings. Of course I'm going to forget their names. I'm not to blame here. He tried to explain desperately, but both John and I were just exasperated. I never imagined you'd be such a forgetful employee. Or is it that you lack the ability to manage your surroundings? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to trouble you, but could you please explain the content of that notification again? It probably covered the reasons for the dual role and the background, right? Seeing that Eric had no idea, I reluctantly began to explain in detail how I came to hold both positions. After graduating from college, I steadily rose through the ranks at this branch before being transferred to headquarters, where I became executive vice president. I continued to advance, and at 43, I was appointed as the president of the headquarters. I planned to continue working as president, but 3 years later, I received a surprising report from the person in charge of this branch at the time. After I was transferred to headquarters, sales had gradually declined, employee morale had dropped, and there was a significant increase in resignations. If the situation continued, we would have to consider closing the branch. This branch held a special place in my heart, so I couldn't just stand by. I immediately convened a board meeting, explained the situation, and obtained their approval. Afterward, I carried out the necessary procedures, including amending the company's bylaws to establish the position of chairman, and appointed John, whom I deemed suitable as the next president, as my successor. I stepped down as president and took on the role of chairman. Soon after, I became the branch manager of this location and immediately began identifying and addressing the causes of the declining sales. The results of those efforts are reflected in the current success of our branch. I explained as Eric looked down in shame. So that's the story. The notification was sent out for such a deep reason. But I thought it was just another power-saving memo and skimmed through it before throwing it away. Seriously, what were you thinking? But now you understand, right? Billy is an extraordinary person, and you must realize the gravity of what you've done to Lisa, don't you? Oh, yes. Eric, who had apparently forgotten all about Lisa, suddenly began to tremble with fear. She's your niece, right, Billy? Well, yes, that's correct. Exactly. She's my brother's daughter. And there's a reason why her highest education is only a high school diploma. I then began explaining about Lisa. I actually had an older brother, Alex, who was 2 years my senior. But he passed away in an unfortunate accident when I was 27. He was engaged at the time, and his fiancée attended the funeral. 16 years passed, and by the time I became president of the company, I received a shocking call from my mother one day. Bill, don't be too surprised, but Alex's fiancée had a child. A daughter named Lisa. What? Alex had a daughter. Of course, I had no idea, so I was extremely shocked. My mother explained that about 2 hours before she called me, my brother's fiancé had reached out to her. It turned out that at the time of the funeral, she was already pregnant with Lisa, my brother's child. However, she wasn't aware of it at the time. When she discovered she was pregnant, she considered informing our family immediately. But because she and my brother were only engaged and not yet married, she didn't want to burden us with this news while we were still grieving. Her parents had already passed away, leaving her with no close friends or anyone to turn to for advice. But she went ahead and gave birth to Lisa. For 16 years, she worked tirelessly to raise Lisa on her own. But eventually, she collapsed from overwork and had to be hospitalized. At the time, Lisa was preparing to enter college. But with her mother's sudden medical expenses, they couldn't afford her education. So Lisa chose on her own to forego college and started working part-time to cover her living expenses and her mother's medical bills. She had been bearing the burden alone all these years, but now she deeply blamed herself, thinking, "I've caused my daughter so much trouble." Realizing that she couldn't give her daughter a happy life on her own, she reached out for help and called my mother from the hospital. Upon hearing the truth, I got Lisa's contact information from my mother, who had received it from the fiancé. I then contacted Lisa, introduced myself, and arranged a meeting with her in person. I offered to cover her college tuition and her mother's medical bills. But Lisa, true to her serious nature, insisted on handling it herself and declined my offer. "Thank you, I appreciate it. But I'll just take your kind thoughts to heart. I can't burden you with this. I'll be fine." "Are you sure? But please don't overdo it. You can always reach me, so call if you need anything." Seeing the determination in her eyes, I couldn't force her to take the money, so I respected her decision. For the next 5 years, I made sure to meet Lisa at least once a year to check in on her. Although I was initially worried, Lisa lived up to her words. She juggled multiple part-time jobs to cover her mother's hospital bills and took good care of her after she was discharged. Impressed by her hardworking nature and strong character, I decided a year ago to recruit her to the branch I managed. As I finished explaining, Eric began sweating nervously, clearly recalling the cruel words he had spoken. Now that I've explained everything in detail, you understand why Lisa is a high school graduate from the countryside, don't you? Do you still plan on bullying her because of her background and education? Of course not. I won't bully her anymore. I'm so sorry for looking down on you so carelessly. Eric sincerely apologized to Lisa and me. Though Lisa's expression showed discomfort, she decided to forgive him. "It's fine. Now I know you look down on me with bad intentions, but it's a waste of time to stay angry." "What? Really? You're going to forgive me? That's a relief. Thank you so much." "Well, that's settled then, Billy. You'll cancel our terminations now, right?" Eric was overjoyed, not even bothered by Lisa's previous remark. Meanwhile, John, with his hands clasped, cautiously asked me. Eric's eyes widened at his words. "Wait? Fired? What are you talking about?" "Oh, I hadn't explained that to you, Eric. Because of what happened earlier, Billy called and said he was firing everyone. I felt like I was going to die when I heard that. But now that things are resolved, I'm relieved." John finally explained the situation to Eric. Eric, upon learning the real reason behind John's anxiety, became visibly unsettled. "Hold on, John. You never told me that. If I had known, I would have apologized the moment I walked into the branch manager's office. We had to rush to Billy, so there wasn't time. And anyway, if you hadn't bullied Lisa, the meeting would have ended as planned. Now, apologize. Quickly." "Oh, yes. Billy, I sincerely apologize. And Lisa, I'm so sorry for bullying you. I was in the wrong. I admit it. Please, just don't fire me." Eric apologized profusely. John also apologized. But my decision remained unchanged. I'm afraid I can't forgive you, Eric. You hurt Lisa. And for that, you, along with John and the branch managers who just watched and laughed, will all be fired. The branch managers might not have known Lisa's true identity, even though they knew I was both chairman and branch manager. Even so, they still bear responsibility for not stopping Eric. They will be punished accordingly. But we've apologized so much. Why not forgive us? Lisa even said she forgave me. Regardless of what Lisa said, the fact remains that this incident happened. I can't just let it go. Besides, this isn't just about today's incident. I've received numerous reports about your behavior from John, including your poor work ethic and your habit of relentlessly bullying employees. Eric, who had never imagined his actions were known, turned pale. I had been visiting the headquarters occasionally, and during those visits, John would report on the staff's behavior. So how's it going? Any problems so far? Any employees struggling or any requests from them? Well, Billy, there is something about Eric. Eric again? What now? Is he still causing problems with interpersonal relationships? Despite my frustration, I listened carefully. It seemed that after being transferred to his dream position at the headquarters, Eric became arrogant and started bullying his subordinates and the new hires. He often dumped his work on them while he slacked off. Each time I heard about it, his behavior seemed to be getting worse. Sigh. I received a similar report not too long ago. Not only has there been no improvement, but things have actually gotten worse. Can't something be done about this? Well, I've tried talking to him, but he just doesn't listen at all, John replied, sounding resigned. He too was becoming a problem in my eyes. John had been the vice president before, and I personally chose him as my successor for the president position. But I deeply regretted that decision. As vice president, he had been efficient and treated employees with respect, making him an excellent candidate. However, after becoming president, he seemed to relax too much, becoming increasingly lazy. Look, John, this is a problem. You're the president, so you need to take more responsibility. You've got to make an effort to improve things. If you can't manage to do that, I'll have to consider removing you from your position as president. Yes, I understand. Though he agreed, there was no improvement in his attitude afterward. As I finished explaining, both Eric and John looked down, confused and dejected. John also informed me that sales at the headquarters have been declining. It seems that both new and long-standing employees in the sales department have been resigning one after another. From what I've heard, many of them were bullied by you, Eric. What? Really? That's just a coincidence, right? I don't know anything about that. No. Since your transfer 4 months ago, resignations have increased. As soon as I heard, I investigated and found that even at your previous branch, there was at least one resignation every month after you became the department head. Clearly, Eric realized he was at fault as he began to show signs of distress. Oh well, I didn't know. I mean, as a department head, there's no way I could be that bad of a person, right? Maybe John is mistaken. During that time, sales at that branch also declined. It seems the same thing is happening at headquarters. With employees leaving due to your bullying, the workforce has been reduced, leading to a drop in sales. If you admit this, maybe you can avoid being fired. What? Really? All right, I admit it. Everything John reported is true. Thinking he could avoid punishment, Eric quickly confessed. I then asked him to detail his actions. He went on to explain everything he had done. Well, I looked down on the new hires, making fun of their education and where they came from. I dumped work and chores on those I didn't like, even made them give me shoulder massages and fetch me tea. And if I really didn't like someone, I'd extort money from them, mess with them behind their backs, and spread nasty rumors. That's classic bullying. Those poor people. If only I hadn't been away from headquarters, they wouldn't have had to go through that. So, I've been honest about everything. There's nothing left to hide. That means you'll forgive me now, right? I grew increasingly angry at Eric's nonchalant attitude. What are you talking about? There's no way I'm forgiving you. You're still going to be fired, so you better brace yourself. What? But that's not what you said. You told me that if I admitted everything, you'd reconsider the termination. I never said that. You're twisting my words. I did consider giving you one last chance depending on what you admitted. But after hearing what you've done, and seeing your lack of remorse, I'm even more convinced that you need to be fired. Even if you were to return to your branch, you'd only cause trouble there. I said this without hesitation, and Eric's face turned pale as he muttered, "This can't be." John, now panicked, tried to intervene. Sorry to interrupt, but about this whole situation. Yes, I bear responsibility for not stopping Eric's actions, but the one who should really be held accountable is him, right? So, I don't think it's fair to terminate me as well. So I can return to the headquarters and resume my duties as president, right? What? Are you serious? You're absolutely responsible too, John. I've told you countless times to address this issue, but all you did was offer warnings without taking any action. I specifically told you that if you couldn't improve, I'd consider removing you as president. Yes, but I'm the president of the headquarters. I've been busy with meetings, conferences, and various other duties. I couldn't possibly keep track of every single employee. John started making excuses to avoid responsibility, but I could see through his lies. John, you might not know this, but I've also been getting reports about the situation at the headquarters from the new vice president, Tom. And that includes your work habits. It seems you've been pushing all your duties onto Tom and executive vice president, Alex. What? Since when? John couldn't hide his shock upon realizing that everything had been exposed. According to the vice president, you've been spending most of your time in the president's office doing nothing. The only president duties you've been involved in are golfing and entertaining clients. While those are important, you've left all other responsibilities to Tom and Alex. No wonder you've sounded so lifeless every time I've called you. You've been completely slacking off. No, that's not true. I do review documents properly. I just leave the signature task to them. That's exactly what I'm talking about, delegating your responsibilities. And when it comes to important meetings, you've always found some excuse to send Tom in your place. By the way, your laziness has caused you to lose the trust of your employees as well. I've pointed that out to you directly before, so you should be well aware of it. Hearing this, John was more shaken than he had been all day. According to the vice president, John's laziness was apparent even in front of the employees. As a result, the department heads had lost their motivation and were no longer working seriously. Despite my warnings, neither your sales nor your work ethic have improved. You didn't even try to resolve Eric's issue. You just sat around in the president's office. Where did the efficient vice president John go? Or was that just a figment of my imagination? I'm sorry. I got carried away after becoming president. I started enjoying the power and the ability to boss others around. But I didn't mean any harm. I'm not interested in your excuses. I've decided to fire Eric, you, and all the branch managers who just stood by and laughed during the meeting. This is final. No amount of apologies will change my mind. With that, John and Eric panicked and dropped to their knees. We're truly sorry. Yes, Eric did wrong. But so did I. I admit it, but please, I beg you, don't fire us. I'm sorry too. It's all my fault. I'll accept any punishment, demotion, pay cut, whatever. Just please don't fire me. I have a family to support. I told you before, it's too late for apologies. I'm not accepting them. When I rejected their pleas, Eric desperately protested. Why? We're apologizing. Is it because I bullied your niece, Lisa? Yes, I hurt your brother's daughter, but isn't this too much? It's not like she's your real daughter." "What are you talking about? Sure, she's my late brother's child, but to me, she's like my own daughter now. And Lisa is the treasure my brother left behind. If some stranger hurt her, of course I'd be furious. Even if she weren't my niece or had no blood relation to me, I still wouldn't forgive you." Eric was at a loss for words, unable to respond. John, seeing his chance, quickly started to protest as well. "I may have made mistakes, but they're not as bad as Eric's, right? Billy, you're upset because I've been slacking off, right? That means if I shape up now, you'll forgive me. I promise to fully commit to my duties as president from now on. So please, don't remove me from my position. I'm begging you." "No. I can't trust you anymore. You'll just go back to your old ways. I've given you plenty of chances, but you never changed. My decision is final." "No. It's not too late. Give me one more chance. I'll do my job to the best of my ability." Even though he was now trying to show some effort, I shook my head. "It's over. My decision is made. The only thing left for you to do is look for a new job. I wish you luck. Now, I'll be calling a board meeting soon. Lisa, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. You can go back to work now." "Thank you, Billy. I feel so much better thanks to you. I'll get back to finishing my work." She smiled warmly and left the office to return to her duties. "You two can go now as well. In fact, you should head back to the headquarters. We've been done here for a while. I'll officially notify you of your termination once the decision is final. Until then, you're on administrative leave." "What? You really won't forgive us? Please, I don't want to be fired. I'm truly sorry for everything." "We'll keep apologizing. We'll even lick your shoes if that's what it takes. Just please don't fire us." They continued to cling to my feet, begging for forgiveness. "Don't make me repeat myself. If you keep this up, I'll call security. But I really can't afford to lose my job. If I get fired over this, my family will abandon me. I feel the same way. I'm not leaving here until you forgive me." Their persistence made me sigh. "I'm calling security now. Wait right there. I'll have you forcibly removed from this building, and you'll be permanently banned from returning. If you still refuse to leave, I'll call the police." "We'll leave right away. There's no need to involve the police. We apologize for the trouble." Finally, Eric and John hurried out of the office. Feeling relieved, I immediately began preparing for their formal punishment. The next day, I convened an emergency board meeting. I explained the situation, including the events that had transpired, and proposed the termination of John, Eric, and the other sales department heads. After receiving approval from the board members, who agreed with my decision, I promptly issued termination notices to those who had been placed on administrative leave. The sales department heads, after being fired, reportedly found new jobs or started part-time work to stabilize their lives. As for John, after stepping down, he explained the situation to his family, which he had been hiding from them. As expected, John's wife was fed up and left their home. Although they haven't divorced, his family has yet to return. John is now trying to persuade them to come back while working part-time as a cleaner to support himself. Eric, a week after being fired, explained the situation to his wife. She was furious, leading to a huge argument. In the heat of the moment, she demanded a divorce. Eric, also swept up in the anger, hastily agreed and immediately submitted the paperwork to the local office, finalizing the divorce. They divided their assets, and since they had children, he also became responsible for paying child support every month. Eric tried to find a new job, but due to his age, it was difficult. He is currently working part-time at a construction site. He's pushing his aging body to the limit, working tirelessly to pay for his children's support and to sustain his own living. As for me, I've handed over the branch manager position to a successor and returned to the headquarters, where I'm now mentoring a former executive vice president who has become the new president. In addition to this, I'm focusing on addressing employee concerns, mentoring new hires, and working towards restoring the company's sales. The new president is a serious and responsible person, so unlike with John, I don't have to worry, and I feel reassured. Meanwhile, Lisa is still excelling in her work in the sales department. Recently, some new employees were assigned to her, and she's been taking on a mentorship role, becoming a respected senior colleague and making significant contributions to the branch. Sometimes we go out for drinks together, and she shares stories from the branch. Lisa's mother has also fully recovered and is now living a healthy life at home. With her mother's recovery, Lisa has become even more cheerful. She's now an indispensable part of Sunny Life Insurance. Lisa will surely be able to lead this company one day. Until then, I intend to continue improving the work environment across the company so that she can work without any worries.